Welcome to the Water Play Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob. Lucas could not be here this week because of prior commitments, so I'm going solo once again. Welcome to the Divisional Round of the playoffs. But before we do, we have to go and say what happened in the wild card round for the New England Patriots as they beat San Diego Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers in New England on Sunday Night Football. 16-3 was the score. It was a very defensive game. Only one offensive touchdown was Hunter Henry caught the touchdown, and that was pretty much it. Not a lot happened in this game. It was defensive battle, and it showed that even as bad as the Chargers' offensive line was, and you saw it all year, you saw the Patriots' offensive line struggle. Not like, one player. It was a collective unit. It all struggled. The speed, the power was what I really noticed. The speed, the power of the Chargers' defensive line, led by Khalil Mack, Owe, Tui Pelotu. Those are things that they really just dominated. It made Drake May very uncomfortable. There was turnovers, there was mistakes. But your defense, when they were on the field, they dominated. And that's kind of what you brought in Mike Vrabel to do. You wanted, like you said, as great as our offense can be, we brought in Josh McDaniels, as great as it can be, we need a guy who's an all-around coach. And by bringing in a Mike Vrabel, we know the whole team, but we know our defense will be really good. That's what was important. And a lot of guys you brought in were very good in this game. Milton Williams was a very good addition in this game. It wasn't that he had 11 sacks the whole season. It wasn't about that. It was about you paid a guy to come in and be big time in the biggest moments. That's what you wanted him to do. And by that happening, to be big time in those moments allowed you to salt the game away. Even though the score already said it was salted away. That was just the finishing touch of it, the finishing shot. And that's what it was. That's what Milton Williams brought. It was the way you intended it to be. It wasn't pretty, but it was effective. And that's what you do. Don't give me excuses, give me results, as the old saying goes. And that's what the Patriots did. It didn't look pretty. The results were we won the game. There you go. It's plain and simple. Now, what won't be plain and simple is this game against the Houston Texans for the divisional round. Patriots are favored by 3. The Texans have a hard time to score points, is what I'm trying to say. But their defense is monster level. It is like if you have ever imagined the minister of defense, Reggie White, and having a bunch of those on the defensive line, that's what this Texans team is. I'm not comparing it to saying they're the best ever. I'm saying it is hard to stop that this year. For whatever reason, they've all turned to Reggie White for 1 year. I don't know why. I don't know how that happened. But Danielle Hunter, that's obvious. Will Anderson's an animal. But even guys like Sheldon Rankins have been really good. In the interior, who was in Cincinnati, he wasn't very good in Cincinnati. But even he's bringing something to the table. They are doing things in a positive way on their defensive side of the ball. I say this, I've said this for weeks, they destroy worlds. And I think that's what's going to happen to New England. I don't think New England's offense is going to be able to deal with the kind of pressure that the Texans can bring with their front four. Not even blitzing, just with their front four. At the front four, Al-Shair is a really good middle linebacker. There's a lot going on here. The Patriots, their defense is really good, and I think they're going to cause havoc. I just don't know if it's enough. Is it enough so the Patriots can win this game? I don't think so. So with all that being said, give me the Texans to win in New England in a weird scored game, 17-10. Let's move to the John Harbaugh news. Now, I wasn't going to put this in this news category, but I am because it just happened. John Harbaugh becomes the head coach of the New York Football Giants. Now, what are the similarities between this job and the Baltimore job? Well, you have a good run game. It's not Derrick Henry, but you have Cam Scatterboo, who he's hard to bring down. Jackson, though, is a mobile quarterback. You had that with Lamar Jackson. The defensive line is really good with the Giants, led by Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence. Those guys, those four guys, it's hard to stop them. The only thing that team really needs help with, there's two sides. They need the offensive line for the Giants needs to be fixed, and the secondary needs to be fixed. You fix those things, you should be okay. But those are the similarities. The negatives to John Harbaugh is they gave up how many fourth quarter comebacks this year? A lot. They've been bad in fourth quarters, similar to the Giants. This year, the Giants had their issues in the fourth quarter, well documented. Same thing with John Harbaugh's fourth quarter collapses, well documented. But this might help each other out. But the same issues persist. The offensive line of the Ravens was not very good this year. And the secondary of the Ravens was not very good this year. Those are issues that the Giants have. You do have earlier draft picks. Maybe that will help out. Try to build what you're trying to build on this team and use the agency and see what happens. But I do like the move by the Giants here. This was the best head coach on the market by far. In terms of experience, in terms of wealth of knowledge, in terms of everything. You knocked this one out of the park. Moving on to the Cowboys defensive coaching search. The Cowboys have interviewed 9 defensive. All but 2 do not have defensive coordinating experience. There's 2 defensive coordinators 2 former defensive coordinators that have had the experience of this position. Jonathan Gannon, who they interviewed, and Covington, the defensive line coach of the Green Bay Packers, who they were currently interviewing right now. There's 9. They've interviewed the Cowboys defensive line coach, their defensive line coach, Aaron White-Cotton, who I find it hard to believe he'll get the job because it was a bottom-ranked defense. Why are we going to give him the job? Doesn't make sense, but you do it because you want to be all nice. Maybe you'll keep him up. Maybe you're out with the force. Say, okay, yeah, you're keeping him up. If you come in, you have to keep him. If you look at it that way, I guess it makes sense. But otherwise, it doesn't make sense at all. But then you have 6 other guys who are passing game coordinators, secondary coaches, cornerback coaches. You've interviewed a couple of these guys. Who they want? There's 2 sides of this coin. Maybe they have. And they say, well, he's still in the playoffs. We can't hire him yet. Or we're not at that point yet. Or maybe the other side of this is they're trying to wait out and see how many of these head coaching spots get filled by defensive coaches so they know who's actually on the table. I think that's the reason they haven't interviewed Brian Flores yet. We will get to him in a second. I think that's the reason why they haven't hired Raheem Morris yet. Because I think Morris, very capable defensive coordinator. He's very good at defense, by the way. The job he did, him and Jeff Ulbrich this year with that defense in Atlanta was really good. They just offensively couldn't get enough out of it. Outside of that, and those guys are going for head coaching jobs, Brian Flores included, just to see what happens. If they get it, great. And if they don't, they're on the board for you. And those guys are taking interviews right now for head coaching jobs. I want to talk about Brian Flores, though, for 1 second. Flores' contract with the Vikings expired on Wednesday. We record this on Thursday. He's interviewed for the Commanders' defense coordinator job. He did that yesterday also. The rule of thumb is a team can block you from interviewing their defense coordinator if he's under contract. Once he's no longer under contract, they can't block you. That makes sense. They can't block you if you're interviewing for head coaching jobs, though, because it's higher up, so they can't block you. So Brian Flores technically could have been blocked, but now that he's out of contract, he can go wherever. He can interview wherever. But it looks like, and same thing with Raheem Morris, it looks like they're only doing in-person interviews. Not what the Cowboys are doing, or not what some of these other teams are doing, which are interviewing them via Zoom. That's the 9 people that the Cowboys have interviewed. They've interviewed the secondary coach from Minnesota. The Cowboys could technically hire somebody if they want. They've already satisfied the Rooney Rule, which means you have to interview 2 African-American coaches before you can hire a defensive coordinator, a head coach, an offensive coordinator, whomever. That's what they did. So we'll see what happens. To me, I think they're just waiting it out. I think they either know who they want and he's in the playoffs, or they don't know who they want and they're just waiting to see who gets what job and who's available. Because to me, there's 3 names you should interview. We already talked about ad nauseum Jim Leonard, Jonathan Gannon. There's 3 names you should still interview if you can. Jim Schwartz, who it looks like the Browns are trying to keep as a defensive coordinator, but they did interview him as a head coach candidate. Doubt he gets it, but they are trying to keep him around. Raheem Morris and Brian Flores. Those guys would, like, everyone in the fan base would love that. My one final point is this. If you're the Cowboys, if you're any team, you are going to hire a defense coordinator at some point. You just are. But I encourage you and everyone watching, take whatever side of the ball you want. What is your weakest side of the ball? You take that side of the ball, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, whatever. And you go and you say, all right, what position are we the strongest at on the weakest side of the ball? So for the Cowboys, it's the interior defensive line. It's Quentin Williams, has Oso Odighizuwa, has Kenny Clark. Okay. What else is your second? Well, okay, it's this, or whatever. For the Cowboys, it's nothing, really. You're looking at defensive end. You have 1 guy on the contract this year. That doesn't work. Even if you bring back Jadeveon Clowney, that's 2 guys. So you can either do this in a variety of ways. You can say, we're going to draft 3 defensive ends, or we're going to sign 3 defensive ends, or we'll try drafting 2 DNs, signing 1, or signing 2 DNs and drafting 1. One of those options. For the sanctity of argument, let's say the Cowboys go and sign 2 defensive ends in free agency, excluding Jadeveon Clowney. They sign 2 defensive ends in free agency, and they say, okay, we got 1 DN position open. Then you go to linebacker, and you say, well, we have all those issues at linebacker. We need to have multiple people, this, and this. All right, well, realistically, they at least need to sign 1 and draft 1. Okay, So you sign one, you draft one. Then you go to the cornerback. You do the same thing. Well, they need corners. Maybe they can draft one, but I would really want to sign two. So let's say, all right, they sign two corners. Doesn't mean they're not going to draft one. It just means they sign two corners. You go to safety. Well, they need to overhaul this group. They sign one, they draft one, or they sign two and they draft one, whatever. But then you get to the draft, the drafting process, and what you're looking in, scouting, and you're saying, I need one of these and I need one of those. I need a defensive end and I need a safety. That's it. And that's how you focus. But you also say, we just fixed our defense. Because if we can get a safety, like Caleb Downs or something like that, you say, boom, I got that. And you can say, okay, I had a defensive end. Well, our first pick, boom, we got that. Now you go and say, all right, we want this. If he's there, we might try to take him. If he's not there, or he's not as high on our draft charts, or as high on anyone else's draft charts, let's try and trade back, get more picks. And if he's still there, we'll take him. And now we have more picks, and now we can go best player available, best available athlete, whatever you want to say. That's how you do it. You should go through it and say, how much free agency can we get? How many free agents can we get to sign with us? And then go into the draft process and say, we have one or two guys we need to get at positions like this, and then the rest we can go BPA. We can go best player available. We can go best available athlete. We can do whatever we want. And the Cowboys, let's say the best players that they want, because let's say, this is a non-realistic world. I'm not trying to pretend like it is. Let's say you're the Panthers and you see, well, we need help at linebacker. Well, I would like another corner. But our offense, we need more help at wide receiver. You look at that and you say, what can I sign in free agency? And then get to the draft and say, what can I get realistically? And if the board falls our way, great. And if it doesn't, well, maybe we can get this position, but we're out of a wide receiver. We need a wide receiver. Well, then you go after the draft, sign one, trade for one, whatever. That's how you utilize the draft. You got to use it as free agency is this long curveball, basically. It starts at a weird point and it ends at a weird point. It starts up here, it goes all the way down to the ground. And it does that in over a couple months span. It's not 1 month, it's like 3 months in a row. Utilize the draft as part of your free agency strategy, but utilize free agency too. Don't go halfway and then try to go and say, we got to dominate the draft. Can't do it. It's not fair to your team. My point is, utilize it as a long-term free agency. And when you get to the end of the draft and you say, okay, what else do I need that I couldn't get? Oh, I needed a safety that I couldn't get in the draft. Well, there's this guy who he's a little long in the tooth, but he's still a really good football player. Let's call him. Let's ask him. Like, is he in shape? Can he get here? Can we have him take a physical? And if he can and everything checks out, we'll sign him. Boom, done, fixed it, no issue. And by doing that, you don't have to nail on every draft pick you're talking about because you signed guys on free agency. You had a plan, and maybe that plan didn't work. Maybe that plan didn't work the way you wanted it to. But then you got to the end of free agency. You said, I have one player I need to get at this position. There's a guy I can call. Here's the guys who are available. I can call him, I can call him, and I can call him. And let me talk to them and bring them in and see what I can do. That's what you do. That's what good teams do. But let me know what you guys say. Who will be the defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys? And who do you think is going to win in this game between the Houston Texans and the New England Patriots? Let me know in the comments. For NFL World and the What to Play podcast, I'm Jacob Hebert. And we'll see you next time.